My son is dead. How could I go on? The telegram said it plain. Lieutenant Raymond Lodge, killed in action. In a moment, the world I knew collapsed. The house fell silent. His mother moved like a shadow. His brothers tried to be strong, but I could barely breathe. I was a man of science, known to the world for my work with waves and wireless, trusted for my reason. To many, I was proof that the universe could be measured and explained. But in that moment, I was only a father staring into an emptiness that no science could touch. I still had my boy's letters, words from the trenches, written before any of us knew what was coming. They were more than paper, they were a lifeline, his way of keeping close even across the miles.
Hello, Father. We have plenty of mud here, but spirits are good. Tell Mother not to worry. I am quite well. The rations are not bad, and there's always some joke to keep us going. There is danger, of course, but one mustn't think too much about it. One simply does one's bit and trusts the rest will be all right.
He wrote of mud and rations, of jokes in the dugouts, of the guns only in passing. He made light of it all, shielding us from the worst, as sons do for their mothers. Those letters were more than words on paper. They were a lifeline, his way of keeping the thread between us unbroken. I could hold them, hear his voice in them, even smile at his humor. Each page reminded me that, even in the mud of the trenches, Raymond was still himself, very much alive and hopeful.
It's strange to think how one gets used to things out here. The shells don't sound so bad once you know they're not for you. Do not worry too much about me.
Those were his last earthly words to us. After that, the letters stopped. I asked myself, was my boy truly gone forever? Or did some part of him endure, waiting for another way to speak? I could not let it end there. So I agreed to sit with mediums. Not once, not twice, but over the course of weeks and months. Dozens of sittings, notebook in hand, every word written down. I went as a scientist, careful, skeptical, testing at every turn. At the first sitting, the medium grew quiet, then spoke in the voice of her spirit guide, a personality she called Fedder. Through that voice came words in Raymond's own tone. He teased his brothers just as he always had. Then came a private name, Pat. That was Raymond's family nickname, unknown outside our home. My heart stirred, but my mind resisted. Could she have guessed? Could I have given it away somehow? I recorded it all, determined not to be fooled. At another sitting, I asked if Raymond could name one of his brothers. Slowly, the sound of each letter came out of the medium, one at a time. N-O-E-L. At first, the medium stumbled with the message. Then it came clearly. Noel. You see, his brother's real name was Lionel. Noel was the private family nickname, used only inside our home. A detail so small, so hidden, that my wife and I were deeply startled to hear it. Weeks later, another sitting. Again, the medium, speaking through Fedder, carried Raymond's words.
Tell Mother not to be anxious. I am well. I am free of pain. Better you picture me laughing than grieving.
These were words any grieving parent longs to hear. Could it be sympathy, imagination? Again, I recorded it, testing and doubting. Out here, it's easier to believe he's near. The world feels lighter, as if something's just beyond sight. At one sitting when my wife attended, Raymond's words came through again.
Tell Father I have met some friends of his, Myers and Hodgson.
Frederick Myers had been my colleague in the early days of the Society for Psychical Research, a man of rare intellect and patience. He died years before the war, still searching for proof that consciousness endures. Richard Hodgson was another, a relentless investigator, trained to doubt, yet persuaded in the end that life does not end with the body. These were not names a medium could have invented by chance. At that same sitting, a new detail came through the medium, a description of a photograph. Raymond, speaking through her, said he was seated with a walking stick across his knees, another man leaning on his shoulder. He added, with a hint of annoyance, that he disliked the picture because the man was leaning on him. I had never seen such a photograph, nor even known that one existed. Yet the image was described with such precision that when my wife repeated it to me later, I wrote down every word. In a later sitting, that same description came again, too exact to be dismissed as coincidence, and too precise to ignore. Weeks later, an envelope arrived from the front. Inside was a photograph sent by his comrades. When I looked at the photo, my breath caught. There was Raymond, seated, a walking stick across his knees, another soldier leaning on his shoulder, his head turned slightly aside, exactly as the medium had described weeks before the photograph ever reached me. The likeness was unmistakable. In the months that followed, I continued my sittings with other mediums, always with caution and a scientist's doubt. Yet again and again, information surfaced that no outsider could have known. Private family details, moments from Raymond's service, phrases that carried his familiar tone. The parallels from independent sources were too precise to ignore. Each sitting added another piece to a pattern I could not possibly explain. Eventually, I understood. The evidence, it was no longer theoretical. There were moments that I could hear him, the unmistakable echoes of my son. The distance between us vanished for an instant, and in that silence, I knew. There was no longer any room for doubt. At last, I'm now certain. My Raymond lives. I honored my son and wished to help others who were grieving. So I published a book I titled Raymond, or Life and Death, not to convince, but to bear witness. It was the record of a father who listened across the veil and heard his child's voice again. Afterward, I returned to my work, to science, to writing, to life itself, but nothing was quite the same. Once you have touched the edge of eternity, the questions that once divided faith and reason begin to dissolve. I spoke to anyone who would listen, scholars, skeptics, the bereaved, not of dogma but of continuity, of consciousness surviving the grave. Some called it sentiment, others blasphemy, but to me it was discovery, the continuation of inquiry into life itself. I found no comfort in argument, only in love remembered and love proven. Raymond's death was not an ending. It was a revelation that what we are is larger than the body that fades.